Hey everyone, SycraStream here, and welcome to another episode of Pointy Chins, where I take you through my art journey. Okay, so to begin with, I have a bit of a simplification of an anatomy model. Basically, I just did a few different variants on how I break things down, and the idea is more to show you why simplification is important and not necessarily to say this is how you should simplify, because there are a bunch of different ways of simplifying. For instance, see here, I kind of think of the torso all as one thing, but sometimes I think of the torso as like 3 parts or 4 parts. And so it really depends on what I need to do. See here, like all these toes are grouped together. Here the big toe separated, and you have like an ankle. Here you have the thumb separated. Yeah, just different simplification things. This one is kind of how I often use it, where these parts are grouped together, these parts are grouped together, and these parts are grouped together. But it's really up to you how you want to simplify, and it's just easier to get the figure down when you do simplify. And then here, this is the underwear of the chest. It's kind of not proportionate, but it's a terrible picture. But the idea is to think of this area of the chest on a woman as being flat. So, you know, you have like a more flat area, and then you have the breasts, which have more volume to them. But to not forget this area of the chest that is a bit more flat, and yet kind of resembles an underwear. You can kind of see it here as well, right? So that lets me know, keep that part a bit more flat. And here I have some variations on a design. So basically wanted to try my hand at different designs, but the same color scheme. So this one's more sci-fi. This one is, I don't know, looks like a future teacher, I guess, maybe, or something. This kind of has a piratey feel to it. This has a athletic feel, and this has like a captain of a spacey type thing. They're all kind of sci-fi. Maybe the pirate one is not too sci-fi, but yeah, and I don't know, I kind of don't mind them. I like the color schemes anyway. They're quite easy in a way. For instance, you have this like teal with the brown of the skin, and then the orange, and then this very desaturated blue with the white. This could even go to cream and it would still look fine. But they're just colors that easily work together. And so yeah, I mean, just putting them in different ratios is probably gonna look okay because they just harmonize well. So here I decided to do some Sakimi Chan studies to figure out composition, because I figured that she has very eye-catching compositions that tend to I don't know, draw the viewer into them. She's very, very popular, and that's for a reason. So thought it might be good to do some studies of her things, and yeah, I thought they were kind of interesting. I didn't feel like I wanted to, like, after doing it, I didn't feel like, yes, this is right, this is what would work for me, but more like, oh, okay, so that's how she does it. I tried to take some notes on, you know, things. So here there's a character in the background, and I noticed that there's a lot of diagonals. Like, characters aren't really straight up and down. Even this one that looks maybe a bit straight up and down is not. Like, there's a bit of a tilt. So that creates more interest, more drama in the images. So that's something good. Yeah, I noticed the arms are often out of the page. That there's asymmetrical parts, even when like the two legs are kind of doing similar things, they're not really symmetrical. There's a lot of elements in the background sometimes which work. This has the hair really big, and it acts like a framing for the face and the body. Yeah, I noticed with the male, she tends to do more bird's eye views. I don't know why, but that's just a thing I noticed. And here, you know, arm, this is a classic etchy technique of having the arms behind the head, which thrusts the chest out, which shows off the boobs. So yeah, there's a lot of boobs, butts, hips in her work. And this was, again, with the old brush that I was using last month quite a lot. And, yeah, I just wanted to do face. And I thought, it's okay. It's okay. It's not great, but it's not terrible either. So those two were done by different personalities. And then this one was kind of done by a different one as well. And I noticed that I have, even within my more anime style, there's variants of it where some are a bit more, I won't say chibi, but chibi-like, chibi-esque, more rounded. Like this has a lot of rounded forms, right? Here's like an inverted wraith, but stylized heavily. And here's another wraith. But yeah, so everything is kind of cuter in a way. And I thought that was interesting. I like this guy. Like, actually, both of these are kind of cool. I like how simplified it is with this. And clearly this is someone else drawing, and this one someone else drawing. But, I mean, someone else is still, like, it's still Sycra, but it's different parts of me in this one too. So yeah, that was like, okay. I've been told they look like midgets, and I don't know. I guess, yeah, if you look at this one, maybe it's slightly midget-esque, I don't know, but whatever. I think it's okay. And then this page I quite like too. Like this one's a lot more skinny and tall and narrow. But overall, they're all right. I like this guy. I thought it had a lot of character in him, even though it's very sketchy and loose. I quite like that. And then this guy's... like I really like the shape of the hair, and then this flow into the bottom of the pants. And yeah, I like how the pants kind of blend in with the shoes. And yeah, I think it's pretty cool. There's a lot of diagonal elliptical shapes. So rather than using a circle, you can see how boring a circle would be in comparison to this. I mean, I hope you can see it. So I try to, or I like these types of like stretched ellipses that are also tilted diagonally, because I feel like you get a lot more energy and drama in it. And even this one is kind of like that too. Like if you were to think of an ellipse within this, it's kind of like a tilted diagonal ellipse, which creates a lot of excitement, a lot of drama. So here I took that guy from here and I kind of cleaned up the drawing. And then I thought, okay, so a few pages ago, I showed you the color scheme that pretty much works, right? Like, oh, all these colors work together quite effectively. And so I kind of did that with this one. So a color scheme that kind of works, but then I wanted to push it as much as I could to color schemes that were kind of maybe not so safe. So this one's still fairly safe. Lots of pastels. Looks like a soft character, like a character just by the colors. They feel kind of infant-like in a way, candy-like. And that's pretty easy to make that color scheme work, but I didn't want to clash it a bit, so I used like a few different types of blues. So this is like a very warm blue, very purpley, then greenish, then just more baby blue. But here I really was pushing things more to extremes of colors. And it reminded me a lot of the 90s and the RPGs I used to play, like the Japanese RPGs tend to have, or they had main characters who were very colorful, I would say. But then the NPCs were much more drab. So whenever you saw a main character, they really stood out. There's a series called Suikoden, and you basically recruit a bunch of different characters, and sometimes the characters were around other NPCs, and you could really tell who you're going to recruit, because just the main characters look, or the characters that are recruitable look very different in color schemes. They really stand out. So I wanted to do that, where all of these potentially could be main characters. And I just wanted colors that really stood out, not necessarily looked harmonized in an easy way. Like it's not like, oh yeah, these totally work, but they kind of do. So like for instance, like with this one, oh, he's got green hair and blue pants and red shoes. It's like, that doesn't sound like it would work. But then can you make it work, even though it doesn't sound like it would have to work? So in that case, you have to like desaturate some things or warm them up or cool them down. With this one, I tried a much more drab approach, but I wanted to put like a green shirt because I stay away from greens quite a bit. That's why you'll see there's greens there. Like when I do use greens, I tend to use like this type of green. But I wanted to push myself. Like a dark forest green is something I almost never use in a color scheme. So I tried doing that. And like I like to use a lot of blacks and whites and teals and pinks and reds and stuff like that. And then this one too, he got like a sort of a tropical feel. I had to turn the fishnets into white so they would stand out against a dark skin. But yeah, I like that one too. And here's just another one, playing around with colors and really trying to push the colors almost where they're broken, or it feels like it might not work because they're just so intense. But then they do work. Like I feel they work anyway. Maybe you disagree. And you know, with colors, there's a lot of variety. I've had a few cases where I've posted color variations and asked, you know, what did people think? What did they like? And the answers are very vastly different because people really have their own tastes. Like some people just hate a certain type of color. Like maybe they hate this blue. So as soon as they see this one, it's like, oh, that one's awful. When maybe it's not awful. It's just you don't like that blue personally. So here I was really confused as to what the heck I was doing, which is why there's a question mark. But I was trying to, I guess, really push and create this rough look. And I was also using the side of the pencil a lot for shading purposes, which I like the effect. Like here, it's kind of like a flat tone, but and it's flat because like the shading is not really following the form. But I still think it kind of works in a graphic way. So yeah, I like the effect of the pencil lead shading thing. And here I was looking at trying to understand the back and back muscles and kind of how the muscles lay on top of each other. Again, I was using the Ray Bustos anatomy course on New Masters Academy as a starting point where I'd watch his lesson, then okay, try to remember as much as I can. So there's probably errors in this because I was just trying to do it for myself to see how much I could remember and kind of what the purpose is. So with these muscles, you can kind of see how they would move the scapula. Like if these contracted, the arm would move back, and you can kind of see how a lot of the muscles work if you think of them that way. Like, oh, if this gets fatter, like if it flexes and all these muscles come together, like in this case, these would this would shorten, and these would, then what gets pulled? Because it's really a lot of things are being pulled. That's kind of how muscles work. So yeah, it's kind of my trying to remember things. This was an interesting landmark that was pointed out to me, which is the M of the back, where you can kind of see this M shape formed by the trapezius and then the latissimus dorsi. And then there's like a gap here, which you'll also see here. And that actually has a name. It's called a triangle of auscultation or something like that. I think I wrote it right. I'm not sure. But yeah, okay. And kind of interesting landmarks to learn. And I think it's good to learn these things because they help when you're trying to figure things out. But I feel like I don't draw enough backs for me to ever remember all the stuff. I tend to remember bits and pieces and forget a lot of the rest. So here, I didn't include any of the arm, the muscles on the scapula, like the deltoid or the teres minor or major or infraspinatus. So yeah, just like the main back muscles in the middle. Okay, so here I was kind of having a breakdown because I was drawing and it just felt so stiff, and it felt like I had been doing pretty well before with like drama and getting exciting drawings, but it wasn't working and I didn't understand why. And I felt like, yeah, I solved this before, why can't I remember? So this was kind of a bad thing, because I was feeling like sometimes I could draw and it was very natural, and I felt, I guess you could say, talented. I felt like, oh, the drawing is not so hard for me, and other times it feels like it's tremendously hard and I'm using all my energy just to get a drawing down. And then there are different personalities with different styles, and one of them just wasn't showing up, and it was just killing me. And then I felt like they were laughing at me for struggling so much, and that was really pissing me off, because it feels like we're all in the same brain, we all inhabit the same body. Why wouldn't you give me the stuff? Why won't you give me the brain to draw cool stuff? But anyway, this page is better. So yeah, this one's like, maybe not so good, but I kind of like these ones. I like how loose they are. Again, probably a more talented version of me came out. And here I learned something about one of them, that they don't show up or basically how I work. They don't show up depending on what I want. They kind of just do whatever they feel like they want to do, and that they also have a time limit. So if I draw with one personality, so this is one personality that's drawing, eventually he gets tired and then he leaves, and then another personality comes out who has a different style, and usually the last one to come out, the one that I can use when I have almost no energy, is this one, the one that does these types of very scribbly continuous line stuff. So it kind of explains how when I'm drawing, I might start like a certain way and then the page ends very differently, and often with like random faces or scribbles or things like that. I do feel like each part of me, if it was the only part of me, like if there was just one style for each, or if I was split into like different people, each one of these styles could be legitimate on their own if they got like enough work, because I feel like this style is kind of interesting. Maybe not everyone would like it. Maybe it wouldn't be easy to find a job, but to me anyway, I think it's cool and interesting. Even like these ones, I feel like, yeah, I mean, if it was refined, it would be strong and fine. But it just seems like because there's so many different parts and they want to do their own thing, I never get enough time to be any one of them to develop it far enough. So like here, things got a lot more realistic, because the one that likes painting probably was drawing, and he likes to show form much more, and his work tends to be more realistic and based on reference. Whereas this one tries to be more like comic book type art stuff, and gets really confusing. But I kind of am learning that if any of them was taken to their fullest, they would probably be fine. So if I could somehow get them all to work, that would be a good thing. So here I guess I became very interested in this idea of different parts with their own styles, and can I figure out who they are? Because if I can figure out who they are and what they want, then I can kind of stop getting in their way, because I don't want to fight them. I don't want it to be like, oh, I draw and I don't have much talent, and they could draw cooler things, but I'm kind of here trying to draw. So this one was one personality. I called him like the anime personality. I'm not sure if that fits exactly. And then this one was, okay, so this one was the second one. And then this was done by the guy who draws all in one line. Then the third one was this one. And that was me drawing after this and trying to draw kind of like this. So you can see how my stuff is sort of stiff, but I guess it's still passable in some ways. But there's a lot more thinking going on with these ones, and it's a lot slower. And then there's a very abstract one that's kind of the one that draws in my black sketchbook. So yeah, breaking it down. So I guess there would be 4 that showed up this day. And then this one, I was letting the personality that came out draw more the way they wanted to and not get involved. And this was cool. Like, I like this guy a lot. I think he's got a lot of energy and feeling, but there are a lot of mistakes. So normally what happens is I'll detect a mistake. For instance, this guy's arm is all wrong. The foreshortening is wrong and it looks too big. It looks like he has 2 completely different sized arms. The chest is all kind of nonsensical. And what'll happen is I'll try to fix all the mistakes and get involved, and then things start to become stiff and it's just not good. So I thought, rather than do that, just let them do what they want. Even if they don't draw accurately, if they draw cool, that's fine. There's always other personalities who can draw accurately. And so let each one do what they can and not try to fix anything. And then here, more of the same, but much more embracing the different parts and letting them do what they want. And it seems to be working. I like these 2 guys. Some of these ones have okay shapes. And then I like this guy. I like him quite a lot. I like the shoes. I like the sword thing, the belt. The gloves are pretty okay. Very Kill la Kill inspired. And Shark inspired for sure. But yeah, this lady's okay too. Kind of like her. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for doing these random, I don't know if they're random, but letting people do what they want, or personalities, I should say. Or I don't know what to call them. Call them personalities because it's easier, but I don't know exactly what it is because it doesn't seem the same as what I've read about other people with dissociation or scene. At least it was more like personalities at one time, and then it sort of just changed. So I don't know what to call them anymore. But anyway, more of this stuff. It's kind of interesting how this one's very sharp, very concave, and then this one's much more convex in terms of the lines. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out the way of doing this stuff and shading it. And right now I'm using the pencil to shade. So basically what I do is I do the drawing and then I make a new layer and I select with the lasso tool the area I want shaded. Then I take the pencil and with the side of it I shade the whole thing in. Then I reduce the opacity to 27% because I like the number 27. I like the number 7. I like the number 2, 5, stuff like that. So yeah, 0, 2, 5, 7. I like those numbers. So I reduce the opacity to 27, and then it looks like this. Like it's visible. It's got some texture to it, and it looks cool. Like it's not perfect. Like you can see in the pants, right? There's like areas that aren't perfectly colored in, and I think the effect is quite nice. The problem, though, is first of all, the personality that draws this way, he presses way too hard on the pen. And that's kind of bad for your tendons. And the shading also kind of hurts my wrist after I do it for a while. So that's not great. Then I took a trip to Vancouver, and it's a 3-hour drive, or no, it's more like 3.5-hour drive. And so I tend to get pretty tired, plus being around my family is kind of tiring at times. So yeah, I got more tired with these ones, and so I had more of these little faces. But I was still playing around with shading. I like this one. He's kind of looks like there's light from underneath. That's what I was trying to go for anyway. And this one is still in Vancouver, just using the old brush and trying to draw something. I think it's okay, but it's not great. But I kind of like this face a bit, and some of it's okay. Here I was trying to draw, well, at least for this one, it's someone who I actually know, and I was trying to draw not them necessarily, but the feeling of them. And I think I kind of got it. So for me, this is funny. But yeah, just funny faces. Here, I was doing the same shading method, but I forgot. So what I do is I select it all with the lasso tool. The area, like I make a new layer, I use the lasso tool. I make my selections of where I want things to be shaded. And then I shade them in. But this one, I forgot to make the new layer, so I used the lasso tool and I made all the selections. But then when I darkened it, this is what it looks like at 100% opacity when I just shade it. And I mean, it's okay. It's not... I prefer it. I prefer the other one where I lower the opacity to 27%. But because it was all on one layer, I couldn't do that anymore. So, hey, you get to see what it looks like when it's all at 100% opacity. And you can see how the lines of the pencil show. And yeah, I do like that. I think it adds a definite flavor to things. Here, I was still drawing people that I kind of... I went to a family gathering and I was trying to draw the feeling of certain people at that gathering. And then here, I don't know what I was doing. Just did a person. Not very good. Tried to make a composition, but yeah, I had very little energy. And then I'm not sure if I'm back from Vancouver, if this still was in Vancouver, but anyway, I think this was still in Vancouver. Just drawing characters more. Again, allowing myself to draw whatever I want and not judge it. I think that's a very important thing for me to learn. And maybe it's important for other people as well, depending on where they are in their development, to learn how to, not judge what you're doing and just try to allow what comes to come. The scary part of that is when you think, well, I've got to draw things professionally, so I can't just draw random things that I feel like, because what if I never learn how to draw properly anymore and I just keep drawing the stuff I like, but it's not good for work? Then what do? I don't know. This day it was very hot and I actually got kind of heat stroke, and so these ones are all dying, melting, but kind of interesting, I guess, as well. And this page is just drawing poses from imagination, trying to make them cool, trying to make them dynamic. It's okay. Some of them are cool. I like this one, for instance. It's got a lot of energy and vigor to it. So yeah, I mean, I don't dislike this. I feel like since I learned to accept myself or parts of myself more, the drawings haven't been so bad. I know last month was terrible, just felt awful. And it's like, I didn't know how to draw at all, but this month is like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, drawing more figures, and some of them get more big and some of them are more structural, some are more skinny. But yeah, I don't hate them. This one's very skinny, kind of interesting. And then this one's just a bad feeling day. I didn't feel like I could draw, and this is what came out. So here I'm just drawing more characters, and I noticed that I really like the anime version of me, the personality that likes to draw more anime stuff. Kind of favors a lot more wider shapes, chunkier shapes, stuff like that. So here I was drawing the Wraith characters, but I was using, like, I was letting the anime personality draw his version of the characters I'd already drawn. And so this was his version of Rhea. And I like them a lot. I think they look cool. The simplification works, actually. I don't like this blood sucker thing too much, but still, kind of like this little Wraith. I feel like the designs, they remind me a bit of the art in Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that, Tactics Ogre type art, where the characters are really minimized. The noses are very minimalistic here. She's got a very subtle nose, and then here it's kind of not even visible. And that I got last month. I was doing the Yata Garasu Hanzo studies, and the nose was pretty much invisible in that one. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, that works. And here I decided, like, the anime personalities style looks very chunky and very cute, and so that was a feeling. And I noticed that when I draw as him and everything is chunky and cute and maybe midget like according to some people, it feels like I'm playing. It feels fun, or a lot more fun than when, for instance, I draw, or some of the more realistic ones draw. And I thought, well, if I can feel like I'm having fun drawing, isn't that the best thing then? Because it doesn't matter what the images look like which style wins, but certainly the style that I should do, it would help if it's one that is very easy to do, or one that feels like, well, it feels like I'm playing. Because I feel like what's happening is when I draw this, the part of me inside that's very young, like the younger personalities, kind of get excited, like, oh, I like this. And so they give me energy to draw more of it. And yeah, I although it might look childish and some people might say, oh, that's too cartoony, or even accuse me of getting worse, which I don't think so. I think there's a very big issue with people, especially in North America, but people not understanding the difference between simple and minimal and bad. And they think, oh, realistic and detailed is good and high level, and simple and cartoony is low level, where I think that's complete nonsense. But anyway, yeah, so I thought, well, it's really good if I can draw more like this, and perhaps make this one the main style, just because I have more energy and it doesn't feel horrible, so why not? And possibly if I was just a normal person, because all the parts would be combined, if someone said, well, draw what you like, maybe this is what I would draw. Because maybe that's what it is. When I have more energy, maybe that's what I like this means. But there are parts where other personalities don't really like it too much. So even so, it's still an issue. And it does feel limiting, because here I was trying to draw expressions. I don't think they look good at all. I think they look pretty terrible, especially this. It looks very stiff and bad, but I'm still learning how to deal with it. And then here I decided I would try to continue reworking the characters and drawing them in the more simplified style, which is very, again, it's more cute, it's more, there's kind of like sharp shapes, but they're still built off rounded forms. Like, this is how a lot of the images start. I kind of included these just to, like, I didn't add details, just to show, well, it starts very rounded and chunky, and then it gets a bit sharper as I add the lines on top. Yeah, I like this one, for instance. I think there's a lot of energy in this. I like this one because of the shapes, and it still feels sort of structural. I think the neck, the fact that I made the neck a sharp line here, had I just curved that, it would have looked much more three-dimensional. So that's important to know things like that, like, oh, how do you end the piece? And then here's a guy doing the old brush, but sort of the same style, so that's interesting as well. Now I tried to do a galu, But I really didn't like this one. This one, it kind of it got forced. It felt like I was drawing and trying to draw the stuff. Because, okay, so when I mean me, I mean the one talking right now. Or rather, the one who's more like the one talking right now. Anyway, I can kind of watch the other ones draw. And sometimes it feels like, well, maybe I could do that. I'm learning some of the things, so I try to learn kind of the formula of what they're doing, so I can do it even without them, even if they choose not to show up. But I don't know, it usually doesn't work out very well. So this one is a good example of it not really working out. And then I mentioned that I'd done this shading, right, where I use the lasso and then I shade. The thing with the pencil and shading, I really like the effect and the result, but the pencil tool in Procreate only goes so big. So you can't make it like humongous. It's at its biggest, it's when you're just shading and it's not that big. So when you shade, you have to really like shade, and then shade. So I was actually getting a lot of wrist pain after I drew, and then it got really bad. Like it got to the point where it was just hurting whenever I moved my wrist. It would hurt when I like extend my fingers or anything like that. And I've seen enough people develop tendonitis and really bad problems to know that you should not, when you get wrist pain, you should stop. You don't want to do whatever you're doing, don't do it. So here I actually changed the way I was holding the pencil, and I was using a grip that I used. I used to do it when I was like doing fine art stuff and figure drawing, where you kind of pinch the tip of the pencil or the tool you're using. And it kind of didn't work perfectly with this, so I had to modify it slightly, but still basically that idea. And so by doing that, you don't use your fingers and you don't use your wrist at all. You actually lock those in place, and then you only use your shoulder and you only use your elbow. And what happens is your lines look nicer in a way. They're a lot more fluid, but your accuracy goes down quite a bit as well. And here I wasn't able to draw any kind of detail stuff. Like this is I couldn't put a lot of pressure down. So everything came out very light, even though this is all at 100% opacity. The lines came out very light, which does actually work for when you do figure drawings and stuff, because you can get very subtle buildup of things. And even for animation, it means you don't have to commit to lines. You can kind of guess with lines. So here, for instance, you can see there are a few lines here that are very faint, but it helps to gather the, like you can just make a bunch of lines and they're so light that you can figure out where stuff goes, kind of like you're searching. You can think of it that way, like a searching line where you're just trying to find the areas. Here you can see some lines for the perspective. And yeah, okay. So the wrist hurt, and the way I draw changes who comes out, and that was interesting. I like this one. Kind of reminds me of, I think his name is Ashley Riot from Vagrant Story. Anyway, so yeah. Wrist pain forced me into different things and trying different things. But yeah, it definitely feels very smooth and flowy. And basically I used to draw like this all the time until I switched to mostly digital, because with digital you can't really do that. So here I discovered something. Basically, if I draw and then I make it wider, like I just stretch it with a transform tool, I really like how that looked. And before I showed how I liked chunky and cute stuff, or at least this personality, and I found like maybe wide and chunky makes more sense, because I really liked how the things looked when they're very wide. And And my natural drawing style is kind of tall and narrow. But if I just stretch it, I can actually get a lot more width into it. And so I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's very wide and chunky. And then, yeah, I like most of these. I think some people might actually hate it, but I think it's quite appealing. I don't like this hand. I don't think that works very well. But some of the other things, like this character, I think looks really cool. This says, super wide. I feel like that's what I was just thinking, like, oh, what would a Japanese person call this? And I always take English words and make them stuff. Like there's a style called super flat, where everything is flat. And so I thought, okay, this is super wide. Anyway. Yeah, I like this one. Very simple. Very cool. In my opinion. And so I was thinking, okay, so I have this style that's very, like, I feel more energized when I do it. I have more energy at my disposal. It's a lot more childish, though. And because there are things like very subtle noses and stuff, how much variation can I get? So that's what this was all about, just trying to find variation. So here's like, oh, trying to draw different types of noses. So it might be more of a Roman nose, upturned nose, one where the brow and the jaw kind of more aligned, one where the forehead's really pushed back, and you get this kind of sloping nose. So yeah, so these were just different variations. The eyes, you know, this is more of an Asian eye. Does it work? And I feel like they all do. At least for me, they all feel like they work. And then these are different head shapes. Because one of the things that bothers me with the anime style, where it might look cool, but everybody kind of has copy-paste faces. And I really don't like that. And like the head shapes don't really change too much. So here, I wanted to have, I guess it's more of a Western thing to have in Western cartoons, to have a lot more variation. So I wanted that. And then here I was doing the age. So, oh, what's it like when you draw a baby and then get older and older? And how does that develop? I'm the least happy with this one. I don't feel like they really look like the same character too much. I think I made some mistakes with my thinking. But anyway. And then here I was trying to do a coloring process. So first I just did the sketch as I do them. I think they look cool. So okay, fine. You got this. Then I colored the lines. So I just went into, I think I went to color balance and I went to the shadows in Procreate. Because in Photoshop, what you would do is you would hit Control U, go into hue saturation, click the colorize button, and then you can raise the lightness and make it any color you want. But in Procreate, you can't do that because it doesn't color. There's no colorize, at least in the version I'm using. So you have to go into color balance and change the shadows. So I darkened the shadows and I just filled in some flat colors. Then I just put a multiply layer and I kind of put that. And actually I like this, personally, I like this stage the most. But anyway, here I got rid of the lines. I added a bit more shading, and I added a bit of I added color balance to it to make the lines more vibrant, or make the colors more vibrant, but I kept the eyes pretty much the same. So yeah, that's a coloring process I was experimenting with to see, like, do I like this? But again, wrist pain, so coloring in Procreate is not very good for me, and shading is not very good because of these things. So here, for instance, I'm not doing the lasso thing where I press really hard. I'm just kind of trying to rough in as much shading as I can. But my wrist was healing because I wasn't forcing it to do stuff it doesn't want to do, which was good. Because that definitely helped prevent me from getting a serious injury, which, I mean, these injuries can last months. You know, Bob Meatbags lasted many months. Flavia got injured, it lasted many months. So it's not fun. So here I'm just drawing like some things I learned from Ray Bustos' anatomy, which is that the back of the skull changes direction at the same point as eye level. And this kind of varies on people, but it's still good to have certain rules that you can follow to help you get stuff. At the point here where the cranium meets the neck, that's also lines up with the nose. There's an angle to the eye, and it goes to about halfway from here to here, and it also lines up roughly where the hyoid bone is. Here I made a box, and that's where your tongue actually attaches to this, and it comes like that forward. Kind of interesting. And then underneath is the Adam's apple, and there's a plane underneath called the digastric plane. I don't know. Anyway, and you know, drawing. I think this one's kind of interesting with the swirlies. I like this kid. He looks really cool to me. Just like angry, and yeah, the proportions are very strange, but the feeling is okay. And I think, you know, it's important to remember how you would think of it if you weren't an art person. Like, if you were just a kid, you weren't trying to be an artist, and you just saw certain things, you're probably more likely to skip ideas like, well, what's the proportions like? What's the anatomy like? And just like, do I like it? Do I not? Does it look cool? So I'm trying to use those judgments. Here's a cami, because I was trying to do fan art, and I thought, well, okay, I have these proportions with very big thighs, and instantly I thought of Street Fighter because I have very big thighs. It's like, okay, maybe I can try Street Fighter fan art. So here's what the sketch looked like, and then I colored it in, and then I did a Froppy from Boku no Hero Academia, and I did Red Monica from Battle Chasers. I got Joe Mad actually saw this on Twitter and said it was good or something, so I thought that was very nice to have some acknowledgement. And that's because I'll zoom in on the sketches, because I like the sketches quite a lot. Maybe I probably like it more than the colored version, but yeah, that's thanks to IB, who let him know. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And so these ones I posted on my DeviantArt, and this one I didn't really, because I wasn't really happy with how the reds turned out. I felt like it looked too flat. I thought the sketch is like, it's okay, but not great. But I do like these sketches quite a lot. I like this girl. This guy feels very cocky. And this one feels more like, I guess, how the Froppy character is. And yeah, okay, so clearly someone else came out on this day. So I started here, and then it wasn't long for things to turn, and oh boy. This person is not happy. So yeah, that happened. Anime personality seems to not be showing up anymore. Oh, that sucks. But yeah, that's what happened. So the drawings are very much switching now, and I guess whoever else is showing up is drawing more. Things are getting a bit more realistic. So started doing some figure drawing, and still using the side of the pencil. So I really do like how the drawing looks, even though it's less refined. But the way I do these is I make a new layer, and then I do the figure fairly big, and then I shrink it. Like, I transform it, and then I put it in the corner, and then make a new layer, draw, shrink it, put it, and then so eventually you get all the figures on a page. And it says 90 seconds. That's the timer I'm using for the figure drawing. But because you have to shrink the images and make the new layer and then arrange them, probably I'm only using about 70 or 80 seconds. But whatever, I figure. All right, try to make as much as you can with that timer. Before, I think I was doing 2-minute drawing, so 90 seconds is got to work a bit harder. This one's a sketch. And this is this character. It's Machi from Hunter x Hunter. And yeah, more drawings. Trying to do like foreshortening. This definitely doesn't look right. Looks like she has a humongous hand, but you know, whatever. Still trying to have fun. I like this guy on this type of, I don't know what it is, but it feels very energetic, and so that's very nice. Trying to show some underboob here. This is an idea I have for Wraith with these people, and I don't know if I'll go into it because it's kind of spoilers for the story. So, I don't know, if you want to read spoilers, you can read that stuff. So here I'm doing more drawings from imagination and trying to get gesture and movement, because I realized, like, yeah, I really do like dynamic stuff. And for this one, I think he's looking pretty fast, and for this one, I like this one and this one. I like how the hand kind of turns into just shading because it implies speed. It looks like a motion blur, and like the foot, the backhand, it's all very suggested, so as if things are moving very quickly. So I think that's cool. I like this person. I don't really know what's going on with this headband thing, but regardless, I think the character design is pretty nice, pretty fun. And here I was actually, okay, so I drew the characters, and then I was thinking, okay, how big are they? And in terms of heads. So a normal human is about 7.5 heads tall. And then an ideal human is, like, the heroic proportions are 8 heads. With fashion models, they tend to be like 12 heads or 11, 10 heads. You can go really crazy with them, like 9, 10, 11, 12 heads tall is not unusual for fashion illustration. Really crazy. And then, so this one was about 6 heads tall. And I was trying to, you know, figure out the proportions. Crotch is about halfway. And then I was doing a girl, and she ended up being, you know, about 5.25 heads tall. And so here I'm doing kind of 2 measurements. One is the heads, and then one is from the head to the collarbone to see how tall that is. So this guy's 5, and this one's 4.5 or 4.25. Yeah, and there's a cutoff here because that's her heel. So if she wasn't standing on her toes, then it would be shorter than what's there. So that's why I didn't go all the way down. But yeah, that was interesting, you know. Okay, I'm working with much smaller proportions, but I still like them. And here, I think these are pretty cool. I like them anyway. I like this guy. He looks like he's thinking a lot and brooding. And then this guy, maybe it looks like he's the dad and this is the son, and the son is like in his teenage years and angsty and thinking about a lot of stuff, and he's sort of like, oh, what's going on? What's going on, my boy? And yeah, so I mentioned that I was stretching the characters. So I tried, like, some of them are less stretched and some of them are more stretched, and the more I draw them, the less I have to stretch them. But I'm also stretching them until they look good to me. So I was wondering, like, does stretching them, it does affect the lines, and is it better if you stretch it and then draw over it, or is it okay if it's stretched and then, so I traced over it to see the difference, and yeah, the lines change a bit between the stretched and the non-stretched, I guess, the traced over version, but I actually kind of I like both, but I think the stretched version doesn't look bad. And yeah, drawing more figures, trying to tilt the head, and using this type of proportions, kind of hard, but yeah, I wanted to try it anyway, and I'll definitely get better at it in time. So that's that. Yeah, I really like this character. There's a lot of energy and gesture in that. Maybe this line would have been better had it just cut in more, but overall That feels very energetic. This is Katana from Mortal Kombat. I didn't really like this one too much, so I didn't end up posting it either. But it feels like, I like these ones. It feels like the appeal is there and things are moving in the right direction, so I'm actually feeling pretty excited about this. And in the next episode, it's a very, very important episode as well. I feel like this one was really important for my development, and next month it's there's sort of a thing I figure out which kind of crystallizes all of the pointy chins, so that's pretty exciting. Hope you stick around for that. I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.